And then and then we have this structure. They are illegal. If you try to go down to Mexico and live however you want, and I mean, Ian, why don't you get with a woman and go down there and ask for a free baby and free health care? You're going to get your butt thrown in prison. I mean, do you know what they do to illegal aliens in Mexico?
Right.
My point is you can't lower the borders until you have that free state.
Well, I don't think that what the Mexican government does has anything to do with what free people do. I mean, that's just another group of
it abuts us.
Tyrants.
Yeah, but you can't listen. If you've got a big government sitting right next to you, and then you lower your borders to it, they're going to come in and get all the welfare, which you say you're against. I mean, I'm talking about reality, not about what's going to happen. Let's hear from Mark and Ian how this works, because they're saying, yes, we can't give all these people free welfare, but I can't even call them illegal because there can't even be laws. Well, that's not going from a little less government to a little less in an orderly fashion, which I agree. We could shrink the state almost down to nothing. That would be a much more individualistic, free, wealthier society. History and common sense show that. But, I mean, I'm going to have to pay the unlimited bankrupt taxes for all the illegal aliens to have all their kids and everything paid for?
Alex?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's focus on that. And real quick, if I could, you keep using a term that really, it gets to me. It's we. And I am not the government, and so I try my best, and sometimes I'll use this term, and I try to catch myself on it, and Mark and I try to catch each other using it, because we've been indoctrinated to speak in this collectivistic speak, and we are not the government. They are the government, and they are going to impose certain things on us, and the people that are out there calling for immigration control are calling for the government to control other people, and they're going to
But that is one of the things the Founding Fathers said the federal government's supposed to do. And listen, I mean, the globalists want to get rid of my common culture as an American, which means Second Amendment, liberty, freedom. And so, of course, the globalists want to get rid of my culture and don't want me to say we Americans, and then they want to sell it with the globalism. Let me tell you,
Alex, we don't have currently in our society anywhere near the most amount of immigrants, first-generation immigrants that we've had in the past. So we're not anywhere near the idea of shaking the foundations of our culture. Benjamin Franklin said the same thing about the German immigrants in Pennsylvania back in the 18th century. So I mean, these ideas are nothing new. America is a conglomeration of a bunch of immigrants, cultures put together. And it, I believe, is better for it. It is the superior culture on the planet, I think, as a result.
And it's the government that's the problem. And Mark doesn't speak for me when he answered his question about less government, less government. That may be the way we get to no coercive government. But I myself am, I'm going to make it straight out here. I am not in favor of coercion between human beings, between peaceful people should not be aggressed against. And so it's getting people
it's coercion that my states are going bankrupt. One of the biggest things is the fact of the illegal aliens and all the welfare. And so I guess but that coercion's okay. I've got to...
No, it's never okay.
You're going to get coercion whether you try to put a police state on the border to stop the Mexicans from coming north, because we don't care about the Canadians coming south, by the way. If you try to stop the flow of Mexicans...
Well, there aren't that many Canadians coming south.
Sure, but if you try to stop the flow, you still get the coercion, you still get the tax dollars, but you focus them on bureaucrats, government agents with guns. What are they going to do with those government agents with guns on the border?
Look, I'm going to tell you this, Ian and Mark. Here's the deal. Austin police have told me to my face, and I've seen it in the news, that illegal aliens are God and I am a slave. So I'm telling you, the illegal aliens are the client of the government. The big, wicked, evil government loves the open borders. But I'm supposed to go, I'm a libertarian. Oh, and the illegals are like, take his guns. I mean, that's how they're voting. And I'm supposed to go, you know what, here's my gun.
You're
putting
them all into one group, and you're collectivizing.
I'm not surprised that people from Mexico vote for Democrats rather than Republicans, because Republicans have certainly made them feel less welcome than Democrats have. I don't vote for either, but I understand how they feel.
I think there are plenty of them who are outside the system entirely, and they have no interest in the government, just like most Americans don't have any interest in
Let me ask you this. Is this the Quaker influence from up in New Hampshire? Because I know the Quakers were big in Metula Raza, liberation theology. I mean, is there a Quaker influence to you guys? Because I think I've heard this before.
Yeah, there's a Quaker influence, but we've had our beliefs as far as immigrants go back almost to the very beginning of the show.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the deal. The Quakers of today are not the Quakers of, the General Greene.
Oh, I'm very, very familiar with the socialist bend of the Quaker meeting houses. I've got it completely, and I talk to them about those issues when we have discussions. I hold their feet to the fire. I explain to them that they are against violence and the government is violence, so they can't be for the government.
But they're not convinced. They just said, let us bring the foreigners in, and we'll talk to you later, Ian, when you're in our FEMA camp.
The only thing I've ever dealt with the Quakers on is the Haitian refugees and sending some money down there for people to get some food.
Can we talk about obedience for a moment here, Alex?
Obedience to my Lord Quaker. Yes.
I think that's an important factor that needs to be touched on here, because I think that what you said earlier, I like a lot of what you said. You know, freedom. If we could have some sort of a society where there was a very small government or no government, where people are interacting voluntarily, that'd be good. You wouldn't have a problem with immigration. So really, the goal should be to get there rather than to focus on how to control immigrants and to get to a free society.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It's like Tony Montana said in Scarface. He said, are you a communist? You want a Schiavone in every corner telling you what to eat, what to wear, what to say, where you can go, where you can go? You know, I want my human rights, just like the President Jimmy Carter says. And my issue with all the people south of the border is, 'cause that's most of the people coming in, the illegals, thought crime again, is that they are voting for big government. That's my problem. And I want everybody to sing Kumbaya, and humans are humans, and humans want freedom. The issue is the globalists, the statists, the collectivists, the main generals of the New World Order. I'm looking at their battle plan. I'm looking at the holodeck projection of the individuals and people that want private property and how the enemy's attacking us. And worldwide, it's overrun Europe's borders, overrun other borders, whatever first world nation, or if it's a poor nation, overrun it with the next door neighbor who's even more poor, to create debt to the bankers. And so I just go back to this as a realist. No country has ever survived with completely open borders. And I understand, the whole Star Trek, Star League, we're all going to be libertarians in galactic deep space flying around together. But gentlemen, how do we get there then?
How do we get where?
I mean, so we open the borders now because that's the libertarian thing to do, and then maybe we'll get rid of the welfare?
Oh, I don't see how that the welfare system can continue to support an increasing burden upon it. I think the idea here that because we had a little welfare in the 60s and we have more welfare now, that we'll have lots more in the future, is saying that because I was 5 feet tall when I was 10, that I'll be 20 feet tall when I'm 40, it's not accurate. The system, the United States government is essentially bankrupt. It is on its very last wheel, squeaking along, and it can't support. Its citizens cannot bear any increase in the burden of government. So I don't know what's going to happen with the welfare system, but it isn't going to increase dramatically. Because
well, Ian, let me go back to your throwaway line, and it's a good throwaway line. No, just because you were 5 feet tall when you're 10 doesn't mean you're going to be 22 feet tall when you're 20. You might be dead when you're 20. You might die when you're 6. Because more often than not, when governments implode from too much taxes and too much regulation, instead they go into a hardcore tyranny, and Mao Zedong kills 40 to 60 to 80, depending on the statistics. The Chinese say 84 million people. Or Joe Stalin goes hog wild, or Pol Pot. And so statistically, very rarely do we have a 1776 where it goes in a good direction. It normally goes in a bad direction. So historically, when we implode here very soon and go into cardiac arrest, the maggots of big government are going to actually consume everything.
Oh, I don't think that you're going to.
By the way, that's Mark over there.
Yeah, it was me that made that statement. I don't think you're going to see that in America. There are as many guns in this country as there are people, and you're not talking about Cambodia where people are trying to scratch a living out of the dusty earth. You're talking about a relatively wealthy nation, one of the wealthiest nations the world has ever seen, and its citizens are armed and have at least a modicum of the understanding of the ideas of liberty.
Also, Alex, the idea that the country should survive survive, I think, is fallacious anyway. I mean, who really wants the federal government?
They can have it.
Right. I want nothing to do with the federal government. I think that as far as getting toward a smaller government / free society, secession is going to be a very important step. So if the federal government doesn't implode within the next few years, hopefully some state government people will say, we've had enough, we're done with this, we're out of here, and then maybe that'll begin an avalanche of other people seceding. I can tell you that here...
Okay, but let's talk Turkey. Generally in history, when you have secession movements funded by the British twice in our history, it ends up being a move to break the country up to then bring those smaller pieces into a larger imperial union later.
It just depends on what really all this depends on is, in my opinion, a paradigm shift, and that paradigm shift is to shift away from the idea of supporting coercive governments. I mean, to that end, here at the upcoming Porcupine Freedom Festival in 2 weeks in northern New Hampshire, there's going to be a mass signing of a Declaration of Independence, basically, from people basically saying, look, we don't want anything else to do with federal government, we don't want anything to do with the New Hampshire government.